Joshua Manupuna was raised in Kaneʻohe and currently lives in Kalihi Valley. His father is from Tonga, and his mother, Odetta, is of Native Hawaiian and Chinese descent. Joshua's grandfather, Sione Manupuna, is the anchor of Joshua's family and helped to root the Tongan ministry at St. Augustine's Church in Waikiki. Grandpa Sione is now roughly 76 years old. I say roughly because Joshua's not too sure, okay? And he currently lives in Maui. Joshua describes his grandfather as hardworking and religious, which I suppose was tempered with Sione's special affection for Joshua, if not favoritism for him, because he's the first grandchild. I think somewhat due to this capstone project, or maybe his interactions with his fellow classmates, the capstone students, Joshua just revealed to me that he'd like to go home one day for the first time to Tonga, to the village of Eoa, where his grandfather is from. An applause for Mr. Joshua, please.
Malolele, and good evening, or afternoon, whichever. Today I'll be talking to you about the Lataki, titled Singing It Up with the Lataki. However, I will not be singing. About the Lataki, I'd like to go over a few terms that would help you understand more about my research project. The three terms are Lataki, Tautupu, and Hivalahi. The first word, Lataki, is actually two words, two smaller words combined into one. Second word, Tautupu, means youth in Tongan. And the reason for Tautupu not being used to describe the Lataki in the Catholic belief is because there are lots of Christian Tongans that use Tautupu to describe their youth ministry. And so the Tongan Catholics wanted to be different and unique, and so they decided to come up with that word, Lataki. Lastly is Hivalahi, which is slang for big choir. And what I mean by big choir is the older generation of the youth ministry. Here's a map of Tonga in relation to Hawaii. As you can see, Tonga on the bottom. It's located in the South Pacific next to Fiji and Niue. In relation to Hawaii, Tonga is about 3,000 miles away from Hawaii. And later in my presentation, I'll describe the migration from Tongan people to Hawaii. So now that you know what the word Lataki means, as well as some other Tongan terms, and have an idea of where Tonga is in relation to Hawaii, I'll now talk to you about my community, the Lataki. The Lataki that I worked with is at St. Augustine by the Sea Church, and it was started by a man named Netani Latu in the 1970s. Netani Latu was part of the Hivalahi, and he wanted to help out with the Tongan community because they were a small minority group during this time. The reason why he started this youth ministry is because of the increasing amount of children within the Tongan community. I don't know if some poly families get 12 to 15 kids in one family. And he wanted to start this for, it was a way for the children to stay out of trouble and to be closer with their family and to their Catholic faith. The age range within the Lataki is from 5 to to their mid-20s. And from my knowledge, anyone older than the mid-20s is considered to be in the Hibalahi. Oh. Sorry. Well, one interesting thing that I found out about the Taki is that majority of the youth are sons and daughters of the Hibalahi. Well, even though in the Lataki started in the 1970s, I also found out that the Lataki would stop their mission for so many years because of the youth growing up to young adults and moving away, going to the mainland, continuing their dreams or whatnot, and not having enough children to continue the mission of the Lataki. Now for a little background about the site of where the Lataki is located. It's located at St. Augustine by the Sea Church. And this church was founded in 1854 by a priest of the Congregation of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary. In connection with the Tongan community, the Hibalahi was part of this parish since the late 1960s and early 1970s. And this church is also located in Waikiki. And since Waikiki is a prime tourist spot on Oahu, it attracts lots of tourists to this church. I'd say more than at least half of the church is all tourists. And also there's diverse cultures within the church community. There's a few Micronesian families and also a bunch of Filipinos that are part of the parish community. Their mission statement of the Lataki is to enrich the spiritual and cultural growth of children through service and to encourage them to recognize and share their gifts, talents, and skills with the community we serve. So my connections to my research project is a personal connection through my family history, and the impact it had on my upbringing. And lastly, with my Catholic faith to the church. I'm connected to the Lataki through family because my grandfather, Sione Manupuna, was there in the beginning of the Lataki. He helped it. He was part of that growing session. And even in today's society, or in the present Lataki, there are lots of my family members, either through blood related or by marriage, which is kind of scary. For the second part, or point, is what my family has done in my life to make me who I am today. And the last point of my connection is my Catholic faith to the church, because I attend St. Augustine every Sunday, or at least try to. So the first literature that I researched was Tevita O. Kaili's dissertation titled Tauiwa, Creating Beauty Through the Art of Socio-Spatial Relations. He got his PhD in anthropology from the University of Washington in 2008, and he is a Tongan scholar. In his dissertation, he talks about the Tongan people and of their language, and also about the Mormon religion and how the Tongans have impacted, and how the Tongans were impacted by the Mormon faith. In chapter 4 of his dissertation, he discusses the 3 ways of migration of Tongans to he discusses the Mormon missionaries coming to Tonga in the late 1800s, I think around maybe 1890s. And 3, the importance of the Mormon faith to the Tongans. The 3 waves of migration that Tivita discusses is the first wave, being the migration of the gods, like I think it was Maui and someone else. This was important because these movements of the gods, Tonga wouldn't be where they're at now. The second wave is between a man named La'au, or is later called Lo'au. And La'au was a prominent chief in Tonga, although he did not have any Tongan blood. He was of Tahitian and Hawaiian descent, and his importance of migration was of Tongans migrating to Hawaii and Tahiti. This leads to the third migration, which deals with the contemporary migration of Tongans migrating outside of Tonga. The third wave dealt a lot with the Mormon Church, because it was the Latter-day Saints, LDS missionaries, that got the movement of Tongans to Hawaii. The LDS wanted the Tongans to go to Hawaii so that they could help build the Church College of Hawaii, also known as Brigham Young University of Hawaii, UH, as you guys know today, which is located in Laie. This movement increased the number of Mormon Tongans and the importance of Mormon missionaries to the Tongan culture. The second literature is a book titled Faith in Paradise, a century and a half of the Roman Catholic Church in Hawaii. The author of this book is Margaret Bunson, also known as Maggie Bunson, and she has been a writer for most of her life and has published many books. In her book, she talks about the acceptance and non-acceptance of Catholicism in Hawaii, and the Catholic missionaries affecting the people in Hawaii. And she also mentions about Father Damien, who later becomes canonized to be Saint Damien. And in this book, it's kind of old, published in 1977, but I feel that this is important because it gives the historical background of Catholicism in Hawaii and how it helps Tongans to be Catholic. And just like the story of Saint Damien, he plays, or he's a role model to not only Tongan Catholics, but just Catholics in general, because of the service he did on Molokai with the people of leprosy. And my last literature is an encyclopedia titled Garden Encyclopedia of World Music, Volume 9, Australia and the Pacific Islands. This encyclopedia talks about the Tongan music and language in Tonga and the importance of these factors to the Tongan community. It also talks about the continuation of traditional style music, and what I mean by traditional style is kind of like a cappella music. There's no instruments, and they make a melody with their voices. And so here's like a short clip of us practicing. so this is one of our Lataki practices. I don't know if you guys could hear the little kid in the background, but yeah, he was singing his heart out. Some of the findings that I found in relation to the literature review is a story of my grandfather, Sione Manupuna. The practices of Tongan language and music being taught to younger generations, and the continuation of religious and cultural beliefs being passed down from generation to generation. The story of Sione Manupuna is about how, on my Tongan side of the family, came to Hawaii. My grandfather is from Ewa, and he's the main reason to why I'm Tongan and why I'm a Catholic. His migration to Hawaii started with his younger brother, HELP Manupuna, and he was the one that brought his family and my grandfather to Hawaii. In contrast with Terita Kalihi's dissertation about the migration with Mormons, for my story, they did it on their own and for their own purposes, for a better life. But my grandfather was the one that kept the family to stay strong in the Catholic belief, because at this time the Tongan Catholic community was very small compared to other religions such as Mormon and Methodist. So just a few approximations about Catholic Tongans in Hawaii. See, there's a total of about 650 to 800 Catholic Tongans within the state of Hawaii. These are about, as you can see, about 200 to 250 in Waikiki, about 50 in Waipahu, 200 to 250 in Lahaina, 150 to 200 in Kihei, and about 50 in Kaului. And I got these figures from talking story with Father Lane and Father Jonathan. And these priests, they work with the Tongan community for a very long time. So in comparison with Tongan Catholics in Hawaii, here are some figures with Catholic Tongans in Tonga. There are about 13,367 Catholic Tongans in Tonga, and this was in 2010. And this makes up about 12.9% of the religions groups in Tonga. It's also the third largest religious group practice in Tonga, and followed by the biggest group, which is Methodist, and the second is Mormon. However, the Tongan Catholic community is still growing in today's society. So my methodology is from Timote Waioleti Talanoa research, and I use the approach of Talanoa, which means talk story, and whakaapapa, meaning to be respectful when talking to the elders, and ofuafeunga, that means to show compassion and empathy. For Talanoa, that's what I did for most of my research, because there aren't too many resources out there that were done on Tongan Catholics in Hawaii. The ways that I did Talanoa was with the people I interviewed was by whakaapapa, by being respectful for what they had to say, and by ofuafeunga, and how I would show them that I was listening and cared what they were talking about, even though sometimes it was boring. So the first person that I interviewed, his name is Father Lane Akiona. He's been with St. Augustine from 95 to 99, then returned from 2006, where he is currently the pastor at St. Augustine. while talking to him, he was very uplifting towards the Tongan community. He encourages the Tongan people to continue their culture of language and clothing to younger generations. And he comments about the parents being happy because of what the church does for the youth. And he also likes seeing the interaction between the Tongan community and the tourists because it exposes the small Tongan community to the outside world. And it gives Tongans a sense of pride because they're fairly a small group, and for the singing that they do in the church. Another person I did Talanoa with is Sione Manupuna. He was a former youth and young adult leader. He is currently the music conductor for the Lataki. In his interview about the Lataki, he says, it was more strict in the Lataki compared to now. It was traditional. He says it was strict because the youth would get disciplined by the elders, meaning slaps or things like that. And it was kind of forced upon them to go to the Lataki, like forced upon the children to go to like Lataki practices and whatnot. But nowadays, he says that it's not. They're kind of more, I say, maybe laid back about it, because of that it's not forced upon the children to go to the Lataki, although there is still discipline between the elders and the youth. He also mentions that there's a lot of change with the Lataki and how they are more involved with the outside community compared to in the past. My last interview I did is with Mahafu Tau Sevelo, and he's been with the Tongan community at St. Augustine since 1972. He is currently one of the parishioners of the Hiwalahi, and he talks about the involvement of the President Nataki to the outside community, and that he's proud to see these changes and to be a part of it. In these next two clips, he talks about the good and bad of the Taki from the past to present. And yeah.
Okay, please state your name.
Okay, my name is Mahafu Tausendela, and I've been here at St. Augustine Parish since '72. So yeah, I've been here for quite a while, 1972.
Were you in the Lataki before?
I was never in the Lataki, but I work a lot, sometimes with the Lataki. I sometimes, come in, I got invited to talk about different subjects in the Lataki, and sometimes encourage the kids to be in the Lataki.
Oh, okay. So,
Do you feel like the Lataki, where they are now, is it helping them or encouraging them? How do you think it's encouraging them to go out into the community and influence other cultures?
Well, right now, I think they have more things to do, activities now than was before. Like they participate in the Holy Trinity with the homeless. They go and clean the room and help, participate in helping them. That's one of the activities that was never done before. A lot of the activities that the kids were involved with before, they have exchange. They work with the other parishes, come together as, they do sports activities, they do visiting, activities, and I was involved in, talking about different subjects, with the Lataki, in the years before. So I have a lot, my kids was was in the trip to Rome at 2000. They were part of the Lataki, So that was the first world conference that was held in Rome in 2000. So 3 of my kids went on that to Rome. Also they went to Australia. That was the other conference, youth conference they went to. So I always try to push them to participate in all of these activities, not for themselves but for others too. To help in their community.
So this leads me to my capstone activity with the Lataki. What I did there was help choose songs for church. Came to choir practice, even though some of the youth didn't show up for practice, and also helped in teaching English songs to the youth because they were unfamiliar with the words. And in exchange, the kids would help me in saying the Tongan words properly because I'm not a fluent Tongan speaker. So that was a good experience. And also I would help in other events that the Lataki participated in. Events such as the Family Promise Program. I went to this event on April 12th in Hawaii Kai on Oahu. And it was located at a Christian church that hosted homeless people for a week. And our purpose there was to sing to them and to keep their faith in God because He always has a plan for everyone. At this event, I noticed the connection of Catholic Tongans to other cultures and religions. When I got there, I noticed a mix of cultures, like a few Micronesian families and a few Caucasians. And after talking to them, after the program ended, they're telling us that they were of Mormon belief, and Mormon and Protestant beliefs. But it shows the diversity of culture and language in Hawaii and how the Taki has contributed to serving the outside community. So my deliverables, what I plan to do is to make a copy of my presentation and give it back to the Lataki to tell the history of the Catholic Tongans to my church community at St. Augustine. My reflections about this project was that I felt like an outsider because I don't fully speak the language, although I can understand a few words and try to pick out on what they're saying and make a full sentence in my head. But also I felt like an insider because I participated in the events that the Lataki took part of. And to the Lataki itself, I felt more of an insider because they got to know me more than just a grandson. Like I mentioned before, my grandfather was a leader for our family, and so everywhere I'd go for Tongan events, I would be referred to as the grandson of Sione Manupuna because everyone in the Tongan community knew him and his reputation. But as days went by, I got more comfortable with the Lataki, and they would know me for me and not just the grandson. So over these past months of working with the community, I learned that even though I'm older than most of the youth in the Lataki, I can still learn from them about the Tongan language. And it's important to continue the Lataki so that the Tongan language and culture can still be maintained for generations to come. I feel that it's important for myself as well as for younger generations to know their family history and to find out their roots, of where they come from. And it doesn't just benefit the Tongan community, but to all Pacific people, to maybe ask their elders of their own family history, because you never know what you'll find, and in the end it's beneficial to everyone you work with.
Having displaced no one, we welcome you. Having been divided, we seek unity. Having been ruled, we seek freedom. Together we renew our hearts with love. Together we renew our minds and souls to be ourselves, to live in harmony. We are one.